And now we move into the Ballooning Hall of Fame presentations. Our first inductee today is Dodds Meddock, officially Robert Dodds Meddock Jr. I've got a couple of letters that were sent to me over the past couple of weeks that I would like to just read about Dodds. They come from some pretty prestigious people in the bowling community. The first one's from Dewey Reiner. Dewey is also an award recipient right here. He received it in 2011. Since I only flew Balloon Works equipment during my 40 years in ballooning, I became very acquainted with most of the staff at Balloon Works, including Dodds. He was a very personable guy with a great sense of humor. When I worked with him, we talked more about business. When I was with him, we talked more about business than balloons. But I do remember one story that he told Jeannie and I regarding his interest in becoming a smoke balloon parachutist to fill the void left by Captain Eddie Allen, who was forced to retire after a serious accident resulting from this final time. And I think Captain Eddie's up on this wall here too. There he is. Dodds was in his parachute harness, laying on the ground with the now hot air balloon being ready for release from its hold down apparatus, when all of a sudden the balloon shot skyward. Along with the balloon and Dodds came the two supporting poles fastened to the top of the balloon by the rope that was strung between the two poles. The rope was supposed to be cut away from the poles before takeoff. Since that didn't happen, the whole shebang went aloft with ropes and poles wrapped around Dodds. Now, as best I remember, since Dodds could not cut away from the balloon and parachute to Earth, he rolled the whole mess to the ground and was injured, including a broken leg. That was the beginning and the end of Dodds' smoke balloon jumping parachute career. And Dewey says, please note, this story, as I remember, is from 30 years ago. Another note we received from Del Lang from the Balloon Works. There are a couple things I would like to say about Dodds. First, he was the best balloon storyteller I've ever heard. All of us in ballooning have had our stories, and most of us love to tell them, but no one that I ever heard could tell a great balloon story with such passion and humor. He was just the best. The second thing I would like to say about Dodds is his integrity. When things were not well financially at the Balloon Works, I remember phoning Dodds in need of some parts. He hesitated about those parts. See, I was a Canadian sales director for Balloon Works at that time, and getting parts when you need them, okay, here I go, lost my second page. There it is. And getting parts when you need them is very important. He indicated that they were having some shortages and was not sure what he could do for me. Despite the problem, he came through and the needed parts arrived. I always considered Dodds a classy guy and a good friend, and it's only my opinion, but given the strong personalities involved at the Balloon Works in those years, I'd always had the sense that Dodds was a guy that often acted as a glue that held things together. Dodds was very special. This one comes from none other than Carl Steffen. And Carl, so you all know, is 99 years old today. Carl sent this note. Said, the Balloon Museum, this is his words, the Balloon Museum in Indianola, Iowa is proud to announce that Robert Dodds Meddock has been declared a member of the Balloon Federation Hall of Fame. He had been a balloon pilot for many, many years, including time in public relations manager for the Balloon Works. He was very popular and talented as the public relations officer. While at the Balloon Works, he conceived the picture of manned flight as described by Greek mythology and put some of these pictures on the side of a balloon. That balloon was named Dream of Flight, which achieved enchanted approval throughout the world and is on display at a private museum. Dodds had a wonderful sense of humor, loved blackberry pie, and was in all respects one of the greatest contributors to the romance and thrills of ballooning. And that's from Carl Steffen. With us today, we've got Dodds' family. The Meddock family was first introduced to ballooning in 1968 when Dodds brought his balloon, Nimbus Secundus. I should have asked if that was right. And it was purchased by Bob Traeger at Dayton, Ohio, where his mother, in-laws, and siblings lived, to launch at a small local airport. His family members were caught up in Dodds' enthusiasm for balloon flight, and his family and his wife's family members traveled to balloon events across the U.S., including Coos Town, Pennsylvania, Valparaiso, Indiana, Columbus, Ohio, and the first 10 balloon events ever held in Indianola. The Eddie Allen family also often joined them in those travels. Our first speaker today will be Gary Meddock, who is the only person to be married at the top of a hot air balloon, and he'll introduce you to his family and share stories about Dodds. Gary?
So I'm going to introduce the family members here and tell a quick story about Dodds. So here we have Dodds' wife Sue and his daughter Adrian.
You want to stand up? Why don't you have them stand up so they can see who they are?
Okay, this is Adrian, and Sue can't stand, but Sue's right here. And Justin, unfortunately, his son cannot be here today. And then my sister Marilyn, her husband Ed, my sister Marcia, and Terry's joining us by Skype today. Can't be here. And Don's got us all involved with ballooning, and I met my wife at a balloon race at the balloon rally in North Carolina. My kid's mom and I got married on top of a balloon, and Jeff's wind dance is right here, and Jasper Dodds is right there. So we got involved in Indianola, was a big part of it. I was 8 years old when we got started with ballooning, and these people were rock stars to me and still are. And coming to Indianola, I was talking with Adrian, it's like a fifth of our life. Every summer, it's like, Indianola, we're going to Indianola. You're gonna see a picture of 1 year the Balloon Works decided to make a tent. They wanted to make a big tent, and they needed a tent pole. And if you remember the water tower by the old balloon field, they used that as the tent pole. I got to rappel out of that water tower, so I got to do a lot of cool stuff. And a quick story about him that I think kind of conveys his childlike sense of wonder and love for life and other people. During high school, I would work at the Balloon Works, and the summers off. So I was there, I was in high school, it was a Christmas break from high school. I was down there working, and it was Christmas Eve day, and about 11 o'clock in the morning, I hear some commotion. I was working in the basket barn, and all of a sudden, Ebenezer Scrooge walks into the building. And I was able to figure out it was actually Dodds under the mask. And he's got a cane, and he's slamming it everywhere, and he's saying, "Bah humbug, Christmas! You all are going to work all day long." And he's slamming his cane around. And he left, and about 20 minutes later, Anna, the secretary, calls over the PA system and says, "Guess what? You're all going home early." So, that's the kind of love for life and other people, and that childhood enthusiasm that he would spread anywhere he went. So with that, Adrian's got some great pictures she's going to show, and I'll let her come on up.
The gas balloon. He was how do you describe him? I guess everybody's been trying. He was an educator by trade and by nature in ballooning. He taught philosophy at the college level. He was an adventurer, a scholar in ballooning, and he really was, just as you heard, quite humorous and ample. Here he is with his first balloon. Well, he's not with it. That's Bob Trogger, or Bob Trogger's balloon, and this is the advertisement for it that he sent to offer the balloon for sale to Dodds. Dodds had already lined up a big paying gig with the 7-Up folks to have an international balloon race in conjunction with the Ohio State Fair. We had no clue what we were doing. Ballooning was in its early days. It was 1968. The flights were scheduled for noon because that's when the large crowds were there. So we had a little bit of a learning curve to pick up. The kids at the basket are Marcia and Gary, starting early with their balloon adventures. Dad flew the balloon on the campus of the University of Illinois. You can see the very professional gear there with the tarp, the balloon strapped to the trunk of the Valiant. In the days before air inflation fans We've got the poles used to hold open the mouth, and of course the old style flapping to put air in the balloon so you could inflate. He wrote about flying over the crowds at the Kutztown Folk Festival, where he appeared every year for 8 days. I looked down at the faces becoming ever smaller below. I waved. They waved back. I marvel at the sensation. I am not flying. They are flying away from me. I am not moving. The earth is turning slowly beneath my feet. I am safe. The basket does not shudder or rock. It is stable and secure. There is no noise. All is quiet. There is no height. I'm as secure as I've ever been. Movement and noise, height and fear all belong to a world below. A cloud cannot fall. And it's lucky that they can't fall because this is the first Barnes balloon that we've had. It had the zipper deflation system in the top. A prompt deflation system. Here is the artwork from an article he wrote about early ballooning in Pennsylvania. I think he really saw Washington Donaldson as a role model, which is kind of a bad role model since he had a spectacular early smoke ballooning accident which shifted him off of the world of the living. We'll see Dodds on the trapeze later, so it wasn't just Captain Eddie that put that idea in his mind. Also, Donaldson was known to fly from the top of a balloon. He also used this artwork as the accompaniment for his article for Ballooning Magazine, Helpful Hints, that were written by Icarus Q. Downdraft. That was his pen name. And just a sample of his writing style. In addressing the hints to balloonists, he called them young neophyte cloudbusters, but he also recognized they were salty old thermal dodgers. He also talked about sunbeam soarers and a-terrestrial tree hoppers. So he had a way with a phrase, which made him very popular in giving interviews, flying the Kutztown Folk Festival, because it was located between the large media markets of Philadelphia and New York City. He gave a lot of interviews. We believe this is the guy from National Geographic that came to do an article about the Balloon and Folk Festival. You see the artwork for the Early Shield Talker Award, that's in the front room. That was one of the Kutztown craftsmen, or crafts ladies, that Dodds became friendly with, and she did this cartoon about the playing on the old sausage advertising balloon that was the Barnes balloon that you saw in the earlier slide. Captain Eddie was the crew chief every year that we flew in Kutztown, and Dad would go through the crowd and draw volunteers, and being Mr. Impresario showman, who wants to volunteer to be a canvasman for the balloon ascension? And he'd bring people out. And Florence Wood, Eddie's daughter, is down there in the center. She's also supervising the inflation. So it was a real big deal. We really became close with the Allens, and Ruth Schmidt is here. She's also part of our extended balloon family. It was sort of not really a traveling circus, but I guess it was a flying circus. And there we could see Marcia, the sullen teen Adrian up there, my mom. And seated, you've got two of the Allen sisters, Florence, the smoke jumper, and Millie with the white pants, and she's still living in Pennsylvania. Mrs. Allen, Louise, who we all called Grandma, and she ate ice cream every day. We were driving around Indianola, and we had been in a car wreck when we were going to get ice cream, and I was like, I think this is where the wreck was. And of course, Captain Eddie, you can see how playful the relationship is between Dodds and Eddie, because of course Dodds is giving him the rabbit ears there behind the scenes. One of the gigs Dad bounces on between teaching at the college level and flying, and somehow he got a gig to fly at the Super Bowl. The idea was there would be a balloon from each team representing each team, and with the old Berner and Dad did not get along very well. He had this ceremonial headdress that was supposedly a museum piece, because he was the Kansas City chief, which he torched. And there's an article there about, at the first Nationals in Des Moines, how he also singed his mustache. It's a contestant singes mustache. And I think that might have been one of the first articles about the balloon race. So, you know, he had a way of drawing the eye of the press. In the early 70s, we didn't have much money, we didn't come from money, but he managed to get over to Europe and catch a free ride with Fred Dolder. Peter Pellegrino, I just found a great letter where he says, here's who you need to ask and he'll take you for a ride. So he put that together for Dad. There's the early aeronaut business card that he used to solicit business. And while in Valparaiso, he also talked the university into sponsoring a symposium, which we held in 71 and 72. The keynote in the first year was Deke Sonicson. Dad and Deke had a great correspondence relationship with each other. They tried to crack each other up with sort of quasi-obscene photo caption contests that they would go back and forth trying to make the other one laugh, and that was just a scream. And in 72, Charles Dolphus came over from France. They had met when Dolphus had come to the 7-Up race, and they had begun their friendship there. And also, Don Picard was a speaker at the 1972 Balloon Fest. And we also had the Intercollegiate Balloon Festival, or balloon race, and which Leslie Pritchard won. She told me she was the only one who was able to inflate, so she sort of won by default. Although, what an excellent pilot, she managed to get the balloon inflated. My brother, who climbed into the basket with Dolphus, he was one of the few fortunate folks that was able to see Dolphus's twin tattoos on his cheeks. Did you see them?
No.
The ladies were not invited. Yes, the gas balloon, the Charlier on one, and the Montgolfier on the other cheek. My brother claims not to remember. And we decided to give up teaching the teaching lifestyle and make balloons. So down to Charlotte with Carl and Tracy. Lots of money-making ideas in those early days. You see the super pressure balloon. If we've got time, I'll tell you about Anne Margaret and sandwiches. That's the super pressure balloon. Tracy and Dodds went and just trying to make money to get the balloon works off the ground. And one of the ways, things that we had to fund was the solar balloon. And you can see this like massive, massive envelope in the background. My mom talking to Odessa, the seamstress there. Odessa just sewed and sewed and sewed the straight line, and she was dumbfounded when it formed the tetrahedron. She thought people must have been sneaking in at night to do something to make it make a shape, because all she did was sew a straight line. And everyone, all three of the principals in the Balloon Works took a quick hop on the first day before we took the official free flight. That was just really a tether hop. Dad later flew in Canada. Tracy and Dodds, this is all like 71, 72, 73, 74, went to Peru to investigate whether native pre-Columbian materials could be used to build a balloon, because why the heck would you have these on the plains of Nazca? Because they're elaborate, and when you're on the ground they look like that. So they obviously have been manufactured or made with the idea that you would look at them from above. So, that was the hypothesis. There had been small balloons that were flown throughout Latin America, non-man bearing. So the idea was maybe it was some sort of smoke balloon that had been used. There's Tracy and Dodds at the shores of Lake Titicaca, and what a weird childhood I had. Oh, where's your father? Oh, he's at Lake Titicaca. Don't laugh. And early on, we got the commission to build Dream of Flight, which you heard mentioned, which was Dad's conception, to try to build this great embodiment of the desire, the passion to fly. So it was done in the Greek temple style. Gary Hickson actually realized the art. We were so happy. It was very exciting that it made the cover of Ballooning magazine. That was like the cover of the Rolling Stones for us, or the Rolling Stone for us at Balloon Works. So we got the cover ad. So that was a real landmark moment. Dad was in charge of putting together the marketing materials in the early days, and they were very beautiful and straightforward, and tracings was one of the ideas to explain Tracy's design process. So you really had Tracy's thoughts with Dodds' words to explain sort of what was behind the balloon. We moved out to Ryan Aerodrome, which my dad named, which Anna still likes that. Anna, whose land it is, she's still with us, and still says, come out to the aerodrome. There we have the converted chicken house, the front room. Dad with the copy of Ballooning magazine, he's just poring over the back copy, to make sure there are no typos or anything on the back cover for that first back cover ad we got. Very easy, he liked to call himself a captain of industry with a wink in his eye, and he's dressed the part there. There's the tent that we built that went around the water tower. You see the aeronaut's lounge, and it's in the display case. Dad actually had that on his CV, that he was the inventor of the Dirigidogue. He had a snack bar as part of sort of, the flying circus that was ballooning with Dodds. And I was a kid at the time, and we had a puppet show as part of the Balloon Works presentation, so it was really a to-do. The photo on the left is Dad practicing on the trapeze. He's suspended below a hot air balloon. Eddie brought down, Eddie is running away. I think Tracy's laughing at Eddie. I think that's actually a shot of Eddie, but that's what it looks like when it happens, when there aren't poles bashing him in the head. And he did break his elbow, not his leg. And the elbow was broken in 23 places. His orthopedist said, well, imagine a porcelain vase. Now drop it on concrete. That's your elbow. Here is the last great adventure, which was to the North Pole. Dale Lang, you heard the letter from Dale Lang. He asked Dad to help design a basket that could be easily broken down to fit in a Twin Otter, which is the main way that you hopped around in the Arctic. And there you see the basket under construction and are being tested at Balloon Works. I was going to read you something about the North Pole, which those are mixtures of shots that he took and the photographer took. It is as if in the creation of this teeming, life-filled planet, the artist has set aside a Zen garden, vast beyond human scale, as a place for meditative retreat and for feeling the glorious oneness of the very simple. Pretty much was out of ballooning as of 1984. Randy Carey, who had worked with him at Balloon Works, brought one over to Duke and they flew. He was a great guy. If you landed on your land, the farmer would come get you on a flatbed truck from a remote field. He loved a great joke, including, if we have time later, we'll talk about the bullseye penguin. The explanation is in the case. And this is a photograph he took of Lake Titicaca that he always included in his My Life in Ballooning slideshow. So he was very pleased with it, both the opportunity to see that and the great shot that he got. But he was funny, he was kind. He caught himself on fire once while teaching. Someone asked him a question, he put the pipe in his pocket and it started smoking. He was answering the question, so I said, yes, what is it? I'm answering your question. He said, well, Professor Meddock, you appear to be on fire. So that sort of intensity and focus was really, really Dodds. The one-track mind when it got focused. And that's my thing.
It is my distinct honor and pleasure to induct Dodds Meddock into the National Ballooning Hall of Fame.